In episode 2, Leanne convinces Sean to go to a GQ photo shoot that he wasn't planning on going to. He wanted to be there for Dorothy, but Leanne convinces him, "No, don't worry about it. I got it." After Sean leaves, Leanne heads upstairs with breakfast for Dorothy along with all of her medication, but Dorothy is not happy to see her at all. She wants to know where Sean is, and she gets super uncomfortable when Leanne tells her that Sean went off to work. When she heads downstairs, Julian is taking care of Jericho. Leanne asks Julian if she can make a meal for Dorothy, and he says, yeah, but it's not going to taste like Sean's. He then goes on to say, oh, by the way, I don't think we should be together when Dorothy's home, recuperating. And Leanne looks at him and says, well, Sean's at work and Dorothy's upstairs healing, so we have to be them now. She then gets up and walks out of the room so Julian can make that dish. And when he finishes it, Leanne takes it upstairs, where Dorothy was watching the news. There's been a violent crime surge in Philadelphia, and the news was covering it. Dorothy, though, doesn't believe that Julian made it. She's very suspicious of anything that Leanne makes her. On top of it, she's pretty miserable because she's scratching all over the place. Because of this, she's pretty nasty to Leanne. She flat out tells her, I don't want you anywhere near me. And when Leanne tries to feed her the food, she spits it out right on Leanne's shoe. Leanne is trying to be very, very patient with Dorothy, but it's tough. She tries to win her over with a welcome home gift. She took all of Jericho's old clothes that he grew out of, and she made a quilt out of it. And one of those items was the yellow onesie that Jericho was wearing the night he died. It's dead center. This really infuriates Dorothy, who yells at Leanne, it's a mother's job to give away her child's clothes, not yours. Leanne then leaves, and a few hours later she returns. Dorothy still isn't eating, and she's concerned about it, so she decides to incentivize her by bringing in Jericho and letting Dorothy see him. This is the first time she's seen him since the fall. Because of this, Dorothy gets super excited, and she doesn't care when Leanne demands that she eat some food before Leanne hands him over. Although the visit lasts all of maybe a minute, before Leanne grabs Jericho back and says, all right, that's enough. We don't want you overexerting yourself. Leanne puts Jericho back in his crib, heads downstairs, and she finds Toby in the kitchen. Toby's helping out with Sean while he does all the GQ gourmet gauntlet stuff. Toby can tell that there's something going on with Leanne. She just looks miserable. And she confides in him that Dorothy came back from the hospital, and even though she thinks she knows better, she doesn't. It's really bothering Leanne that Dorothy is acting the way she is. About an hour later, there's a knock at the door, and it's Courtney. Leanne answers and tells Courtney, yeah, Dorothy's resting right now. But to Leanne's surprise, Courtney says, well, Dorothy texted me to come over, and basically forces her way in. She heads upstairs and starts laughing with Dorothy. The two are chatting. And with the door cracked, Leanne is standing outside of it watching all of this. That is, until Courtney gets up and closes the door at Dorothy's behest. Leanne heads downstairs and is just sitting on the step, thinking about everything that's happened that day and how nothing she's done has worked, when Sean comes back. And when she asks Sean, what are you doing here? He says, well, Dorothy asked me to come back. And the fact that Dorothy texted Courtney and called Sean upsets Leanne even more. But there's a bigger issue. There's a full-blown bedbug infestation all over the block. There are bug crews outside going door to door handling it. The Turner residence hasn't been touched, and while neither Sean or Leanne have been itchy, they decide to check, and sure enough, there are bedbugs all over that house, which would explain why Dorothy keeps itching. And her scratching has gotten worse and worse as the day has progressed. As Sean goes room to room, figuring out which of them has bedbugs, Julian is downstairs trying to get in touch with an exterminator that can help him out quickly. That's when his dad knocks on the door in a full hazmat suit. The good thing is he brought hazmat suits for everybody. Sean comes downstairs, starts putting the hazmat suit on, but he's in a situation because he can't move Dorothy. All he can do is wait for them to get an exterminator. But while Sean and Julian are putting on the hazmat suits downstairs, Dorothy is awoken to Leanne shaving her leg. It's a super weird scene. It's with a straight razor. It freaks Dorothy out. And when she kind of tries to kick Leanne off of her, she ends up cutting her leg pretty good. Leanne is so frustrated by this because she's trying to do a nice thing for Dorothy, or at least that's the way she conceives it in her head, that she grabs some, goes over to Dorothy and starts smashing it in her face to, quote, give her some color. And Dorothy bites her. That causes Leanne to storm out of the room. A little while later, Sean finally comes upstairs and sees Dorothy for the first time. She's pretty pissed off at him for taking this long, and he explains, I came home as soon as I could, and I've been here for a while, but we're dealing with a bedbug infestation. Don't worry, though. I'm going to handle it. What Dorothy's more concerned with, though, is the fact that Sean left her alone with Leanne. At this point in the day, Dorothy and Leanne are the only ones not wearing a hazmat suit. Dorothy, because it'd be too much of a pain to get her in it, and Leanne just by choice. It might be because Leanne is just so damn frustrated. As she stands over Jericho's crib, Julian comes in, and Leanne vents to Julian, it doesn't matter how much I give you guys. Either you or Sean or Dorothy. You guys are just miserable all the time. I mean, do you know how horrible it feels to be taken for granted? It's infuriating. It's like bugs crawling under your skin. And then she walks out. But it's interesting timing saying that with what's going on. Leanne continues, though, doing her job. She goes and grabs a bedpan and storms into Dorothy's room where she interrupts a conversation between Dorothy and Courtney and tells Courtney to kick rocks because Dorothy has to go big potty. Right before Courtney leaves, Dorothy says, "You'll make that call for me, right?" And Courtney assures her, "Yep, I will," and then walks out. That's when things get downright disgusting. Because Dorothy does go to the bathroom. She does pee in the bedpan. But as Leanne is trying to wiggle it out underneath of her, Dorothy intentionally bumps into it and piss flies all over Leanne. For Leanne, this is about the final straw. She tells Dorothy accidents happen, but I just have to clean up after you all the time. And then she strips her down, leaving her on the bed with nothing but that quilt from Jericho's old clothes. On the first floor, though, the bedbug situation has gotten worse and worse. I mean, it's got to be one of the worst cases anyone's ever seen. The frustration of not getting an exterminator in a timely manner is getting to everybody. So Julian walks out and talks to one of the guys saying, "Dude, you're not doing anything. Can you please get in that house and do something?" And while this lowly worker goes to get his boss to talk to Julian about the situation, one of the people from the homeless encampment walks up and says to Julian, "It's fantastic, isn't it? Her gifts grow every day. You must be in awe. I mean, look at this. She did this to protect us from those that want to do us harm. She's shielding us, shielding your family." Julian brushes this woman aside, just saying, "I think it's just more of a matter of hygiene." But the woman grabs him by the arm and says, "You can feel it, can't you? When you're close to her, there's something that pulls you in and tells you that she is the way. It's her power." And while he doesn't admit it to this woman, yeah, there is something about Leanne that he can't quite pinpoint. At dinner time, Leanne brings up Dorothy's dinner, and Dorothy is crying, saying, "Do whatever you want, just let me see my son." Leanne, though, doesn't even respond to that. She tells Dorothy, "You used to like me. What happened to that?" And Leanne is fighting back tears as she says this. Dorothy shoots back, "I realized what you are. You're evil." Leanne processes this and tells Dorothy, "I'm starting to realize something about the people around you. They love you very much. But I think even more than that, they're afraid of me. It used to bother me, but I'm starting not to mind it so much. I mean, I think they're so afraid that they wouldn't even step foot inside this room if they knew that I was in here. Probably not even if you screamed. So right now, I'm all you've got." And then she leaves, leaving Dorothy terrified. At nighttime, the hail comes, and so does Uncle George. He comes stumbling down the block and asks one of the exterminators how many houses were affected. And the guy tells him it was basically the whole block. The good news for the Turners is the exterminators have finally arrived. But the bad news for Sean is GQ wants him back the next day, which he can't quite figure out. He just did a full interview with them. And now they want him back. It's weird. Leanne is listening to Sean complain about this, but there's still stuff in the house that she needs to do. So she goes about doing it. But when she comes up from the basement, she notices that the front door is ajar, and she gets concerned. She heads upstairs to see if Dorothy is okay, and to her surprise, there are two strangers standing there, and Dorothy seems very, very comfortable. Dorothy informs Leanne that these two women are the live-in nurses that Dorothy hired to help her. This really blindsides Leanne, and when she asks Dorothy, "Why?" Dorothy just says to her, "I think you know why. You're not going to win this battle, Leanne. You can go now." And then the two nurses close the door in Leanne's face. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.